We're back. Another edition of Kevin's Corner, Week 15. Eddie Garrison, what more do you want than Saturday afternoon in your own building? And, imagine saying to Shane Steichen at the start of the year, Shane, Anthony Richardson's going to play 173 snaps, and when Week 15 rolls around, I'm going to present you a game in your own building against Mitch Trubisky. You win it. Your playoff chances rise to 60-some%, and you lose it. And it drops to, 20-ish%. When you take in realistic expectations for this season, I even think Shane Steichen would say, where's the dotted line? Where do I sign on that? And that's what you want. I just think as a, put all the long-term, big picture, draft picks, Richardson aside, that's going to be a pretty fun moment come Saturday afternoon, and just the anticipation of that game. It might look ugly. It might look clunky. It might be a defensive score or a special teams play that sparks a difference, but it's going to be a massive one inside of Lucas Oil Stadium. Mr. Garrison, how do you do?
Doing well. Only 2 times the Colts have defeated the Steelers since 2003?
Yeah, I thought I heard Mike Chappell say today Peyton Manning and Mike Pagel, I believe, are the only 2 quarterbacks, both wearing number 18, to have beaten the Steelers. Yeah, I mean, when you think about it, lately it's been a lot of one-possession games, a lot of really good games. But when you think back to...
And then the blown lead in Philly with, was that Brian Hoyer?
Blown lead in Pittsburgh, yeah. When Mika Fitzpatrick had the big pick 6 there. And that one, you obviously have a lot of other just blowouts. But that was more like Antonio Brown, Big Ben related. But lately, again, even last year, it was a little bit of a backdoor, but it was a one-possession game. Pittsburgh moved it with Kenny Pickett here in your own building, but still, it wasn't a huge discrepancy there. So just absolutely massive. And, we're going to get into a little playoff picture look, and then the Steelers. I will stress this as much as I can in the podcast, Eddie. The T.J. Watt injury situation is the biggest news item of the week. There is nothing bigger than his status for this game. And the ramifications of him playing versus not playing, I think very well could be the difference in the game. Frankly, I don't think the Steelers have that realistic of a shot to win the game unless he plays. I think he's that important, and I'll throw a couple numbers at you to kind of stress that throughout the pod. But think about who would be opposite him as we record this on Wednesday afternoon. It's looking like it'll be Blake Freeland again. And when you think back to the big elite edge rushers the Colts have faced this season, these are great football players, don't get me wrong. But Eddie, Josh Allen changed the game. Myles Garrett changed the game. Trey Hendrickson changed the game. And this is the next one. And you can make the argument he's more in the Garrett category than even the Hendrickson or Allen category. So we will try to update you of his status if we get the news during this recording. Again, I just left Colts practice a little bit ago. Did not see Braden Smith, did not see Jonathan Taylor participating. So I assume those guys will be DNPs heading into the final practice of the week. And T.J. Watt did participate yesterday. Pittsburgh had a practice coming off the mini bye week, playing on Thursday. They practiced, and Watt did participate limited. And I think, again, no concussions the same. There's no real, concrete precedent. But if there is such a thing, typically, Eddie, if guys do participate in that first practice of the week, that certainly gives them a chance, and maybe even a decent, then better chance to be in the lineup come Saturday afternoon at 4:30. So with that, should we get a little playoff look started here?
Yeah, I was about to ask, what do you foresee with Juju Brents this week?
Yeah, I think he will play. I actually thought there was a chance he'd play last week. And I don't know, Eddie. Feel free to disagree with me on this. I think if he's ready to go, I'd play him as the third corner. I would put him, Jalen Jones, and Kenny Moore in that 3-man grouping.
Gotcha.
I think Darrell Baker's been horrific. I don't want to act like that. But I liked what Juju showed. And granted, that was 2 months ago. So you have to acknowledge that. But I would like to see him in the lineup. Now, there might be a little bit of the bias of Kevin Bowen looking long-term view as well there. So I will raise my hand there. But I also think in the short term, I kind of liked what I saw. So, it looked like he was practicing today, and it looked like E.J. Speed was going as well. And I think if you look at the 4 guys that missed Sunday, the 4 notable guys, Brents, Braden Smith, Jonathan Taylor, and E.J. Speed, Eddie, I think you can make an argument E.J. Speed is the biggest loss. out of all those guys. And that's more of a compliment to speed, and I just think there were some plays that Ronnie Harrison did not maybe fit up exactly how you would have liked for him to do that. So, again, when the injury report gets released as we record this, we'll update you on that, but my gut says Juju Brents gives it a go, and I think there's a chance he is, playing actually for you as well.
Yeah, ironically, the Colts missed speed on Sunday against the Bengals. I thought,
look at that.
They just struggled to set the edge, and I think with him, it helps them in the run game, especially when it comes to laterally and not vertically.
The thing too about speed, Eddie, is think about how many negative plays ended Colts drives. So many negatives. I didn't feel like the Colts created enough negatives for Jake Browning. They made life easy for Jake Browning. Jake Browning had half his passing yards on screens.
He just sat back there. He didn't bring pressure at all.
And threw
generate
for 270. Yeah. It's not like you threw for 140 and whatever. They busted, a 60-yarder on a screen, and everything else was dink and dunk central. So, let's get into a little playoff look here heading into Week 15.
As things stand right now, if the playoffs were this weekend, the Colts would be in as the 7th seed. The Steelers are the 6th seed. The Texans are 8. Denver Broncos 9, followed by the Bengals and the Bills. All of those teams are 7 and 6, and they're ranked accordingly so in connection with their record within the AFC. So right now, the Steelers, they are 5-4 against AFC opponents, much like the Indianapolis Colts. The Texans are 4-4, the Broncos are 4-5, and the Bengals are an astonishing 3-6. The Bills are 4-5 as well.
Got an article up on 107.5, The Fan, that kind of details this, but I would say a few things that stand out, Eddie. First off, the NFL sent out this note earlier in the week. It's the third time in the history of the league that you've reached this point of the season, and you have 6 teams from one conference having the same record above 500. So it's pretty rare air, to quote Coach Irsay, in that you have 6 teams at 7 and 6. Cleveland they are so injured, Eddie.
The upper quartile of the upper quartile.
Right. Yeah. How do you make sausage? Cleveland is so banged up, but at 8-5, maybe just for the exercise, considering their schedule the rest of the way, I almost am going to give them a playoff spot. It's probably premature, but they finish, with a relatively, Bears, Texans, Jets, Bengals. I don't know. It might be a little too early, but again, for this exercise, let's slot them in. And again, they have the head-to-head tiebreaker over Indy. So then you look at 6 for 2 spots, and those are the 6, 7, and 6 teams. If you look at the difficulty in schedules the rest of the way, Pittsburgh, 8th toughest. Cincy, 9th toughest. Buffalo, 15th. Houston, 19th. Indy, 20th. Denver, 26th. So if you base off the 6 teams at 7 and 6, the Colts have the second easiest remaining schedule. And the 2 games you would label as really bleeping need to must, I think, have, you get them both in your own building. Now, track record lately in Lucas Oil Stadium hasn't been great, but still, I would think you'd rather have that than the reverse of it. A little thing to just keep an eye on. We're not there because the AFC is super jumbled at the top. But, Eddie, if we get to Week 18 and Miami or Baltimore are locked into their seed, Miami plays Buffalo. Baltimore plays Pittsburgh. We could be looking at, Tyler Huntley / it was a Mike White maybe for the Dolphins. And obviously you would assume guys like Tyreek Hill and Odell Beckham, those sorts of guys would not play in that game. So that is just, again, I'm probably a little bit too early to go there just yet. But that is something certainly to keep an eye on. By the way, Colts official injury report out. And yes, Braden Smith, Jonathan Taylor, both DNPs. Everybody else of note, full participants in practice. Buckner was limited. I don't think that's too alarming, but it is a back injury, so just something to keep an eye on. And then Segun Luby was limited. What else stands out to me? You brought up the conference record. That's something to note as well. The Colts are in. Basically, I think you want the Colts to be involved in multiple tiebreakers. You want multiple teams with the Colts. Mm-hmm. The head-to-heads, those might not go well for the Colts, if it's Cleveland, if it's Jacksonville, if it's Cincinnati, of course.
Potentially Pittsburgh.
Yeah, maybe Pittsburgh. But, again, Sunday it's a 40% fluctuation type game one way or the other. Or Saturday, it's a 40%er. It's, it is absolutely monumental, gargantuan, massive, insert whatever synonym you have for it. Basically, I look at it like this, Eddie. You win, you're on pretty firm ground going in the last 3 weeks. You still got to take care of your own business, but you're on pretty good ground. You lose, it's, not all but over, but now you need help and help and help. You have to scoreboard watch like none other and do your own part. So it's kind of twofold. Whereas if you win, you obviously stay, controlling your own destiny, that phrase you hear a lot this time of year. But you also have a little bit of margin for error to play with, particularly with an NFC opponent next week in the trip to Atlanta there. So anything else playoff standing wise that stands out to you? I guess you're still watching Jacksonville at 8-5, but like we talked about on Monday's pod, you'd have to go undefeated. They'd have to go 2-2 or worse the rest of the way to get above them. Anything else that stands out to you, Eddie?
Not really. I was trying to see if there's a team that could, sneak up. I don't think the Jets are that team. I understand Zach Wilson was just named AFC Player of the Week, and he had the best game of his career that you could argue. You could make the case for that Kansas City game as well, even though they didn't win. But there's not really a team outside of these 7-6 teams that you can look at and be like, that's a team that could win the final 4 games and sneak into the playoffs if everything goes right in front of them. I just don't see it.
I don't see. I would think, again, Cleveland, if you want to slot them into it already or not, I just think the other teams come out of 7-6. To your point, I mean, Herbert, being hurt. If Buffalo was maybe at, 6-7, because nobody's at 6-7, right?
No.
Yeah, 5-8. That's the Thursday night matchup, right? Chargers and Raiders, the 2 5-8ers. So
Aiden O'Connell and Easton Stick.
Gosh, pray for Al Michaels. Detailed look, 107.5 The Fan, Eddie, at the playoff standings. We'll continue to update this. As always, Saturday games sandwiched around the Colts, the 2 Saturday ones. Cheer for what? First game, you want the Vikings over the Bengals, is that correct? And then the nightcap, you want the Lions over the Broncos, I think, if those are the 2 sandwiched around there. So,
looking at the Pittsburgh Steelers, 7-6, as we've already talked about on Monday's podcast. They will be with Mitchell Trubisky as the starting quarterback. T.J. Watt, Alex Highsmith, their 2 leading sacks. In terms of their defense, they are in the concussion protocol. Obviously huge. We've already talked about it with T.J. Watt. If he can't go, Mika Fitzpatrick in the secondary. That defense is a force to be reckoned with, like every other Pittsburgh defense. Cam Hayward still along the defensive line, and offensively is going to be the big question mark when it comes to the Steelers.
Pittsburgh's got some individuals, Eddie, that still, I think, keep you up a little bit at night. I don't know if it's to the level of Cincinnati, but I actually think outside of quarterback, you could make the argument Pittsburgh might have better individuals, both sides of the ball. It's just Trubisky looks so damn bad. I mean, Eddie, he got booed on the first play of the game. I mean, it was so alarming. Official injury report is out for the Steelers. T.J. Watt was full. So I would say T.J. Watt right now is trending, to steal a phrase from the one and only Chuck Pagano, trending in a positive direction. Who else am I looking for? Highsmith. He was limited, so he continues to participate. Now, they did have a few DNPs of note. Obviously, we know Kenny Pickett. Deontay Johnson, new to the injury report with a knee injury. And then Isaac Seumalo, arguably their best offensive lineman at guard. He has not practiced the first 2 days this week. Again, I think the Watt injury is just I think it's massive. Just I cannot hammer that home enough. I saw a wild stat today, Eddie, since 2000. Okay, so if we go back the last 4 years of T.J. Watt's career, the Pittsburgh and games they've had him on the field, they've won 68% of them. In games that he has not been on the field, 10%. They're 1-9.
Oh, wow.
We're talking about a defensive player. If you look at the points allowed in those games, it is a 7 point difference, 26-19 in games that TJ Watt has played, 19 allowed, games he has not, 26. I mean, it's just it's an astonishing number. It's a major credit to him as a football player. And Eddie, I'll admit, I probably have a little PTSD to 2020. And you think back to that December game in Pittsburgh where the Colts had, drum roll please, Will Holden and Chaz Green as their starting tackles.
Oh, my.
In that game. And TJ Watt had 2 sacks and a huge strip that set up Pittsburgh's first fumble. It was a wild game. Big comeback by Pittsburgh in that one. So, he's done it. And, a guy like Blake Freeland opposite him, again, PTSD, Eddie, think back to the Myles Garrett play in the end zone. I mean, that was simply Garrett lined up opposite Freeland and Drew Ogletree doesn't chip, and boom, the rest is history of that play there against Cleveland. So, it looks like Watt certainly has a chance to play. Other things of note with Pittsburgh, you brought up kind of what they do defensively. I mean, turnover margin has been their big thing. Mm-hmm. They have needed that desperately. I think they're second in the NFL in turnover margin. They've needed to do something to make up their offense, and that has kind of been the calling card. They're a top 10 scoring defense. Outside of that, they don't really do anything that well, to be honest with you. Certainly offensively, they don't do anything great. Decent run game. But, again, I want to go back to the individuals. Like, George Pickens can go make a play. That can change a game. Deontay Johnson can go make a play that changes the game. Pat Freiermuth, pretty good tight end.
Jalen Warren is an underrated running back.
I would say Najee Harris and Jalen Warren is like a nice duo. Mm-hmm. And again, you brought up Cameron Hayward, Joey Porter Jr. I really like coming out of the draft. Obviously, Mika Fitzpatrick has done it to this team before. Alex Highsmith is a very good edge rusher on the opposite side. So I think Trubisky stinks. And that, to me, is something I can't get out of my head. But, Eddie, I'm also sitting there, I'm like, damn, they've got some dudes. Like, this is not New England and Carolina in terms of where are they going to have the individual that makes a play.
Here's the thing. If they give him the same amount of time they gave Jake Browning, any quarterback can do what Jake Browning did to the Colts on Sunday. Like, if you're not going to try to blitz and if you're not going to be able to get home and generate pressure, and when you play consistent zone coverage, any quarterback, high school, college, can pick you apart.
Yeah, no, it's a great point. Pittsburgh has really struggled against tight ends. I guess insert your joke about a Colts tight end emerging here. Can you exploit that at all? Obviously, anytime Pittsburgh's in your own building, at least I'm curious about how many terrible towels will be humming in that building. And then the Colts run game. I talked to Quentin Nelson yesterday, Eddie, about it. And I thought he was pretty candid, specifically with the Cincinnati game. And he pointed to they didn't get to the downhill linebackers early enough. He pointed to himself for missing some of those, and then said they struggled with kind of the combination blocks. And if you look at, he also mentioned the negative runs. I think I mentioned this on Monday's podcast. Eddie, 13 carries for Zach Moss, 6 went for 0 or negative. If that percentage creeps into Saturday, and now TJ Watt can pin it back come third down, that's where the game can change. So I do think the run game, I know Shane is very confident publicly in it, but Eddie, it's 4 of 5 games, 2.7 yards per carry or less. You go back to Carolina and New England, you didn't run it. Tampa you did, which is surprising because Tampa's actually a pretty good run defense team. But obviously the last 2 weeks, Zach Moss, 32 carries, 79 yards, 2.5 a pop for Moss. So that will be something to watch. Anything else Pittsburgh related? I do kind of have a crazy Michael Pittman stat I want to throw at you before we get to Twitter questions. But you got anything else?
Does this game end up like New England? 10-6, very low scoring, ugly, not pretty?
Yeah, I mean, for our sanity, hopefully not. I might uptick it by a score or 2 for each team, but what are we at, 42? Is that the over-under?
So what, you're going to make it 13-9? Is that what you're going to make it?
Well, I don't know, 17-13, I don't know, something along those lines. Pittsburgh hasn't scored over 20 in a month, right?
Yeah.
I think they've been in the teens or at 10 points for the last 4 games, and obviously that includes even Pickett, playing in some of those games. Colts going throwbacks again.
November 12th. That was the last time they scored 20 or more against the Green Bay Packers, and it was a home game.
Gosh, seems like eons ago. All right, the Michael Pittman stat, okay? NFL sent this out this week.
Hold on. All right, got my socks on.
What?
You gonna knock my socks off with this?
Oh, wow. I wasn't totally following that. I think I will. 6 straight games with at least 8 catches from Michael Pittman.
Yeah.
Okay. If he stretches that to 7 on Saturday, he will join a 4-person company in the history of the National Football League.
Can I guess one name?
7 straight games with at least 8 catches. Guess away, Eddie Garrison.
Okay. Jerry Rice?
Jerry Rice is a no.
No, he's not on this list? Okay. Did Michael Thomas do it the year he went absolutely nuts with the Saints before he became injury prone?
You're a smart individual.
Okay.
Michael Thomas, one of the 4.
Can I get a hint for the
one
others?
more.
There's 2 left on the list, right? He would become the 4th?
One crazy man, one very famous individual to the female race, and I think a player that you could honestly compare a little bit to Michael Pittman.
A crazy player?
A crazy man who's gone shirtless in an NFL stadium before.
Is that T.O.?
Antonio Brown.
Ah, okay. I didn't know which crazy man you were going with there. I can't think of the third one.
Okay, famous to the female audience. Come on now.
It could be a lot of players. What year?
Who do the Swifties love?
Oh, really? Travis Kelce?
Travis Kelce. And last but not least, I've always loved this guy.
That you compare to Michael Pittman?
Yeah, it's a little unfair to Pittman. Pittman's got a little bit more raw ability. He's a great player, though. Anquan Boldin.
Oh, yeah.
So Thomas and Boldin, Eddie, 8 games. That's their marks. Kelce and Thomas and Antonio Brown, 8 games. Kelce and Boldin, 7. So think about that. If Michael Pittman does this Saturday and does it in Atlanta, he's tied the NFL record. I mean, can you imagine being his agent right now? Being like, this is glorious. Just glorious.
But, I mean, we talked about it on Monday. It's been pretty much Pittman or nothing.
It has been. But you know what? There's a lot. I get that's a counter. Eddie, there's a lot of wideout cores in the history of the NFL. It's been one dude. And I don't see anybody else on that list. Potentially, if Pittman continues to do it. So I get where you're coming from, but I think it's also certainly a hat tip to number 11 for the Colts. Anything else Pittsburgh Steelers related? 2.5, is that what I saw? Colts favored by? Anything else Steelers related before we move on?
This is the first time the Colts have faced Mitchell Trubisky.
Correct, as a starter. He did face Gus Bradley back in 2019. I don't know if anybody cares about that.
How'd he do? Do you remember?
Bears, Chargers. It was like kind of blah. Nothing horrific, but nothing like, crazy.
Like on Monday, very few Twitter questions. You ready to hop into those?
Let's do it.
Only 3 on today's pod. One of them came to me, so
Look at this.
I'm catching up to you. Patrick, can you please get into Gus Bradley about not blitzing? Number 1 sack percentage in the NFL on blitzes. We Colts fans are so tired of sitting back in zone coverage. Ravens lead the league almost every year in defense, and they blitz the most other than Minnesota. Seriously, a Colts fan wants to know what it would take to blitz a lot more. Are you willing to be more aggressive is the question that you need to ask Mr. Bradley.
Okay, let me fire off this tweet here about the old concussion protocol.
Thought you were about to send Gus Bradley a text with that tweet.
Can't say that. Can't say that.
By the way, you still going Twitter?
Yeah, I will always do Twitter.
I've now permanently gone with Twix.
Oh my gosh, you're such a millennial. Are you a millennial or are you in the next generation?
I can't remember.
This goes back to something we were just talking about with Jake Browning, Eddie. You didn't make life somewhat challenging for him.
Nope.
Which I thought you did against Bryce Young. I thought you did against Will Levis. And I just didn't think frankly, I didn't even think you sniffed it.
And C.J. Stroud in the first matchup against Houston.
Right, whose O-line was decimated, going into that game. So I think that is what is frustrating when, again, half of the dude's passing yard. He had the highest pass rate in the NFL last week, and his intended air yards was from me to you. And we're in the small studio in our building right now. Like, it's just, when you're facing those types of quarterbacks, and half their passing yards come behind the line of scrimmage, and they have a 270-yard day. I mean, come on now. So yes, I would agree wholeheartedly with that. And look, I know Browning was great against the blitz, against Jacksonville, but somehow, some way, you have got to create something. And if you don't feel like, for whatever reason, the blitz or your four-man rush is going to get home, then come up there and clamp and suffocate and put a safety over the top of Jamar Chase and, pray that your corners hold up. I understand the hesitancy in wanting to do that, but you have to disrupt timing against these young dudes. And I thought Jacksonville put the blueprint out there. You let Browning go dink and dunk central in quarter one, and he hit his first 10 against Jacksonville, then he's going to make some big throws. Mm-hmm. And I just thought you let him get into way too much of a rhythm. And it's not like he even needed to make many throws down the field. But when he did, he hit Higgins and made a couple of those plays.
Daniel's Twix question is next. If Michael Pittman Jr. is a number 1 or 1B and you pay him as such, do you still go after another number 1 wide receiver in free agency? If so, aren't you discarding Pierce, saying as how you would have Pittman at 1 or 2, free agent wide receiver at 1 or 2, then Downs in the slot as number 3? I just don't see the Colts going 4 wideouts all the time with Richardson's running ability. I see Ballard going his usual free agency route and trying to find a wide receiver 2 or 3 that is young and could ascend to bring in competition for Pierce.
Eddie Garrison, what is my phrase often with Anthony Richardson and the support of him? As I put you on the spot unfairly.
The cupboard?
I've used the cupboard analogy. Don't skimp. Don't shortcut it.
Nope.
Do not. Discarding Alec Pierce, whoop-de-doo. If I'm offending people, so what? At the end of the day, I'm trying to make sure that kid, and he's 21 years old, feels supported. Mm-hmm. And if guys go down, if guys don't pan out, if contractually guys hit the open market and don't want to be here, I want to make sure that I'm not scrambling. And so that's why I've stressed wide out for sure. And again, you don't have to be 4 wide.
No.
Alec Pierce and Michael Pittman are playing every freaking snap but 2 every game. So it'd be nice to probably alleviate a little of what is on their plate. I think it would allow to use Josh Downs, continue to use him in really variety roles. Obviously, slot, he's great. I think Downs has shown me a little bit more after the catch, Eddie, that I even think some gadgety stuff with him makes sense. And again, not all these guys are going to stay healthy. Now, to be fair to Daniel for the question, this is a lot of my idea. We know Chris Bauer's history with wideouts. We know him and I's history with wideouts. It has not been eye to eye on this. So,
freaking Bowen.
18 to 24 months, kind of in that time range. Another year of Alec Pierce. That would be year 3 for him on a 4-year rookie deal. Mm-hmm. So obviously a critical evaluation there. And I don't know. Maybe Mike Evans, maybe T. Higgins. Calvin Ridley, right? He's the other one potentially hitting the open market for agency-wise. I don't think we get number 1 wideout. True number 1s. Like if you want to really nitpick, Pittman I really, really like. Is he a top 5 wideout in the NFL, top 7? No. So, those guys are the guys that have potential to be that. Stephon Diggs making the trade. A.J. Brown making the trade. Tyreek Hill making the trade. It's oftentimes trade. Mm-hmm. Or draft. Mm-hmm. Acquiring them in free agency is probably unlikely. So, I will be steadfast in that. Eddie, and this is I don't want this to come out as a knock on Peyton Manning. Peyton Manning had a Hall of Famer in Marvin Harrison, Reggie Wayne, and Dallas Clark as a damn good tight end and won 1 Super Bowl. Mm-hmm. And we got Anthony Richardson. So, and look at his collegiate career. And look at Peyton's college career. Just support the hell, especially if there comes a point in time where, for whatever reason, Richardson is not the dynamic dual threat dude for 17 weeks out of the year. If you go to a backup, you want Jake Browning, to feel pretty comfortable with his weapons.
Yeah.
So that's why I stress it, and it's on the epitaph.
Something you could do, too, that's kind of out there a little bit is if you wanted, you could do a 3 wide receiver set with Pittman, Pierce, and other wide receiver that's not named Josh Downs, and you can move Pittman in at the slot.
Yeah, oh yeah. Trust me. I think about this stuff and then just think about Shane Steichen, and all of a sudden I'm thinking, are Colts fans salivating? Because they should be. Look at what Shane's been able to do with this, current makeup. Yeah, I mean, I'm a huge believer in Shane Steichen, particularly from an offensive mind standpoint. So you give him the ingredients, man, and wherever.
Yeah, I think I lean towards Higgins when it comes to the free agents if they wanted to go that route, because he had 2 bad drops against the Colts Sunday, but drops has been a problem with him, and I'd like to say that he is able to operate not just vertically, but you can use him all over the field. Like, you can use him intermediate, you can use him short, which is something that Pierce has struggled with, as evidence to his pretty much what his route tree has been, is go balls.
Yeah, no, I would agree.
Final Twitter question is from Cody. With the Colts having a ton of free agents and expiring contracts at the end of this season, who has more of a say on who to bring back, Chris Ballard or Shane Steichen? Also, do we know which games the Colts scouts have attended this year, or is that something the team doesn't share? Thanks for the time. P.S. That interest on the Reese's that you owe Eddie is building up, brochacho.
It is. Gosh, I do owe you that. Before Christmas. I promise on that end, Eddie.
It's before Christmas.
Eddie, I still got 12 days. With the show on Mondays, Eddie, I don't get a chance to travel to as many road games, really any road games that I used to. But I do, go to Cincinnati, and Ballard's in the press box. Boy, I forgot how passionate that man is during a game. He really strikes a nice balance, I think, from a, personality maybe isn't the right word to say it, but just like, I think he's very well spoken. I think he handles, communication, media, player interactions. I think he handles all of that extremely well.
Yeah.
But it is funny when that ball's kicked. It's just a different
The competitor.
breed. The competitor is on full display. Which, again, I think if you're a Colts fan, you obviously love to see it.
I've never seen it, so
yeah, it is. He's into it. He would do well in section 625. Throwing a couple back and interacting with that bunch there. But
you think he's like that at his kids' games?
Oh, I don't know if it's to that degree, but I think there's some internal fire that burns.
Or at least in the car ride home.
Sure. Yeah. As soon as the door shuts. Yeah.
Can I go with Mom?
Yeah, exactly.
Can I go ride with Mom?
I don't know. The white, Kristen Ballard strikes me as pretty fiery, as well.
She may be more nice about it.
This is Ballard's roster, Cody. To the question, but I do think he has and will listen to Shane Steichen, particularly on the offensive side. I think you already saw that, a little bit of the diversification of some of the wideouts, even in little, roster moves, Isaiah McKenzie wasn't really a little one, but Isaiah McKenzie, and then the draft pick of Downs, and then even in Amari Rodgers, we really didn't see that type of wideout with the Colts before Steichen got here there. As far as scouts and whatnot, I know the scouts are in town. I think they're doing their first of, I want to say it's 3 kind of draft breaks down. Basically, college season's over before the bowl game, so all the area scouts in town, and this is kind of their first run through of it all. So area scouts are back in. I don't know, which I would hope your area scouts are going to, obviously, all of the important ones. I don't know specifically which games Ballard went to. I think for the most part with Colts drafts, Eddie.
No Morocco Brown signings? Sightings?
Well, he tries to check pretty much all the top 50, top 100 guys. I mean, with Ballard drafts, now what? Is this going to be his 8th draft coming up? This is year 7, right?
Yeah.
This will be his 8th draft coming up. I mean, isn't it kind of it's relatively easy to predict? I mean, hell, I have no insight. By no means am I chasing draft picks. That sounds like a life that I'd be divorced by tomorrow if I tried to do that. And last year in my mock, I think I had 3 picks right. Basically, you just chalk it up to this, Eddie. Do you test well? Do you act like a good human being? And
What's your RAS score?
What's your RAS score? And did you go to the Senior Bowl? And if you check those boxes and you're on the board, there's a damn good chance the Colts are going to take you.
He's a good football player.
So that's pretty much where we're at with Ballard in the draft. I've got one more, if I could throw this at you. All right?
Okay.
This is from Logan. All right. I like this one. If the NFL were to have an expansion draft and the Colts could protect 2 players, who do you think they would be? He goes with Richardson, and then either Michael Pittman or Zaire Franklin. What say you, Eddie Garrison?
I go Anthony Richardson.
I hope we don't pick the same.
DeForest Buckner.
We are not going to go the same. Okay, walk me through Buckner.
I just think the steadiness, the constant ability up front to disrupt the running game, the leadership that he brings defensively, his availability, his toughness, all of that is something if I had to, start a defense with, it's probably where I would go. So I went with one offense and one defense.
I respect that one. I'd go with Richardson. I respect the Buckner one. I think he laid out a lot of great qualities and why he would make sense. Age and contract are included, right? In expansion draft, I kind of forget what happened with the Texans, how that worked. I would go with Bernard Ryman, and I know it's probably not the best week to acknowledge Bernard Ryman, but Eddie, I just think, what's he making? $800,000.
That's true.
Starting
Good
left
point.
tackle next year, and the year after that's like $1 million, and obviously, then you're gonna have to pay him significantly moving forward. But you know me, man, all about the support of the quarterback, and yes, defensively, Buckner makes a whole lot of sense. But if I just gave Anthony Richardson, Tarek Glenn, or Anthony Costanzo, and did it with a third-round pick and not a first-rounder, in terms of money, I like that.
Yeah, it could cost you more down the line, though.
Sure, but I
don't think you're going to complain about that.
No, I would happily sign that check if I knew it was making number 5 healthier than he's been here as a rookie.
Yep. All right, time for your prediction.
Boy, all right, am I going first with that? Did you just beat me to the punch by that?
Yes, Rosie's dad.
You did. We still got to do a Max Bowen. How about Max Bowen, 5 straight?
Really?
5 straight. Did you see last week's by chance?
I did not. I saw it was released early. That's why I missed
chaos. Yeah, we haven't done this week's yet. Chaos. Rosie Bowen, meltdown. Kick the Bengals helmet to him. Next thing you know, he's picking it up. Colts line down to 1.5. Started at 3, down to 1.5.
So that ends your speculation now about the white helmet theory.
Yeah, but
right?
Again, there were some people that wanted Rosie flagged. They were not happy. They were not happy whatsoever. I'll go back to what I said at the start of the pod. For them to have a realistic chance, I think TJ Watt's got to play.
Mm-hmm.
If you base off of what TJ Watt's done the first 2 days of practice, again, there's still steps to clear. It looks like he is going to play.
And it was a contact jersey, too, by the way. Not a red, non-contact jersey.
There you go.
Found some footage online.
Now, as much as I think, I think the attention towards Watt has got to be endless. I think you are constantly chipping him.
Oh, yeah.
If you single team him against Blake Freeland, you get what you deserve. You flat out. You get what you deserve. And I don't, if it takes away a skill player from a route tree, you'd rather have Rigoberto Sanchez trotting on the field on 4th down than the terrible towels waving, because
isn't that what Mo Alley Cox is on the team for?
Any of the tight ends. Hell, Isaiah McKenzie. If it can be successful, chip. Just something.
Other than the Zaire package?
Just slow him down. Having said that, I can't get Trubisky from Thursday Night Football out of my head. And part of me wants to say, Kevin, don't fall too deep in the recency bias trap. But yeah. I think you commit endless resources to Watt. Trubisky's going to give you an opportunity or two. If you cash in on that, Colts 17-13.
17-13, you say?
17-13.
So you're not far off from 13-9.
No. But for some reason, both teams in double digits makes me feel better.
See, I don't think that's happening.
All right. Where are you going with this one?
I'm going 17-6.
So you think the Steelers really stink?
Yes.
Now, there's plenty of evidence of that. Eddie, I just think their skill is still,
the Colts will get...
one missed tackle by Jalen Jones and George Pickens is the other. Now, who knows? Maybe George Pickens will be ejected by halftime by his own team.
Yeah, right. The Colts will have one drive offensively where they'll take it down and score like they did against Cincinnati, and the defense will have a turnover, and it sets the Colts up on a short field, and they score that way. Then you get a field goal from that guy.
Monday, 10 a.m., we'll be back. 3 to go after this. What a critical one. on Saturday for the Indianapolis Colts. He is Eddie Garrison. I'm Kevin Bowen. Everybody have a great week, great weekend, great sports weekend here in the state of Indiana. Enjoy it. We'll talk to you on Monday.